Welcome back to the podcast. I have a very special guest, an ex-coach of mine, an ex-international or current international coach of mine, and a very, very special player within the game and outside of the game, Paul Cooke. What is the message, my man? Thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure, mate. It's great to be here with you.
Mate, an absolutely awesome start to the Super League season. We're a couple of rounds in now. It's been enjoyable. It's been entertaining. What are your thoughts so far on, obviously, the 14-team competition and getting amongst it, really?
Well, I think the promoted teams have I guess, not surprised me as much as most people, given I was in the Championship last year and know quite a lot about particularly York. Bradford, as a club that have always been up there in the Championship, been exiled from the Super League for a long time, and Toulouse have been right up there for a lot of years under Sylvan and won the grand final. So I think whilst it's been a shock for most people, I don't think it's been as much of a shock for me, them three teams. Wigan are flying until they've had a couple of hamstrings. Bevan French this week going down. So, maybe OKR could have been a little bit better, but they've won a World Club Challenge, so I think they'll take that. But yeah, it's been a great start to the year, and I've really enjoyed being at and seeing almost every game.
Absolutely. And what's that sort of like, obviously, since you've stepped away from the game, getting involved with sort of the behind-the-scenes stuff, adding your 2 pence into the game and commentating on a lot of stuff. So what has that been like, transitioning into that area, like, from coaching?
It's somewhat, when I came to York, Ronan, to you and everybody at York, excuse me, it's something that I kept doing. So it was a part of an agreement when I came to York that I would continue to work in the media. TalkSport have been really good to me. So I've worked the majority of TalkSport over the last decade. Sky now have had me on a few times. I've really enjoyed that with them. Bit of local radio as well. Radio Humberside, Radio York. I did the York Hull FC game. So yeah, I really enjoy that side of it, and it's much less stressful than any coaching. You don't have to deal with the politics in what is a very political rugby league game. So, I get to watch games and I get to watch them for free and get paid a few quid and I'm happy.
That's exactly what you want, isn't it? That's what dreams are made of for the life after rugby. Speaking on that, obviously the coaching's come to a bit of an unexpected halt, shall we say.
Yeah.
What's that been like in terms of transitioning away from, because you went from playing and then you went into coaching and then it sort of was just slam on the brakes with the coaching. How's that been like for yourself?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I went into York as an assistant and I didn't want to be a head coach. And then I joined Featherston as an assistant and I didn't want to be a head coach. But when you're invested with players, particularly, when a coach loses his job and you're the assistant and they ask you to take the role, when you're invested with players, you've got to do it. Otherwise you're a bit hypocritical. You're asking them to give you everything as a coach and assistant coach. And then you turn down the job to help them. So I felt obliged, really. I had another year on contract at Featherstone as the head coach this year, which obviously has gone pear-shaped with the club, which is a real shame, but one which I do believe is a blessing. And quite quickly found that with Featherstone, there's a lot of good people that really care, and there's a consortium that I'm involved with to try and get the club back up and running. I do believe the club will be back in 2027. I'm not sure who will get the club, but I do believe we've a chance, a strong chance. So what happens beyond then, as always with Rugby League running, you don't make too many plans, because if you make plans, they go pear-shaped quickly and you don't end up seeing them through. So we'll see what happens over the next few months, and hopefully that comes back, and then I'll make a decision on what I do from there. That may well be that I don't go back into Featherstone at all in any capacity. It may well be that it's not as a coach and as part of the staff, or we'll just have to see.
Absolutely, and that's something that I was so excited about talking to you about. Obviously, with the excitement of the newly promoted teams coming up and the changes within the English game of Rugby League, that's come at a cost, hasn't it? That's come at a cost to the Championship, and the way that I frame it as, usually you have the team that comes down from Super League. Yeah. They're going to be the stronghold in the Championship, whether that be a London, that be a Wakefield, that be a Toulouse. They're always going to be the team that are sort of pushing that full-time experience in the Championship. Yeah. Then you usually have a Bradford, a York, a Featherstone and a Halifax making up the remainder of that six, and then an outside chance someone, maybe a Donny, a Sheffield, a Widnes, making up that top six in the Championship. When you promote three of those teams, the team that comes down in Salford don't bring that same full-time thing, and you lose Featherstone and you essentially lose Halifax. I know they're back in now this week, but that completely changes the championship dynamic, as well as merging it with all the League One teams. And I'd like to know your thoughts on how that sort of unfolds over the coming years for English Rugby League, because with the Super League thriving as much as it is, what does the rest of the structure look like?
Well, that's the interesting one for me. Is one as a game we kick ourselves a little bit, don't we? We don't make decisions early enough, and when we do make decisions, there's still lots of questions that get asked. I guess we just have to suck it and see where it takes us. There's only one league now in terms of the championship. It's the League One's merged with. If there's nowhere for them clubs to go, then I don't see how. And particularly with Featherstone, which I found last year, is people need a carrot. Supporters need a carrot. If there's no carrot to go to Super League, then they're not going to turn up and watch a championship team, whether they're winning or not. So the league structure is going to be interesting. I do believe London will go up next year. I think London will go into the Super League. I'm not sure as to why Darren Lockyer and the other guy with him, Grant, is investing in London if there's no end goal for them as Super League. They was unfortunate to miss out this year. I think the majority of people thought that they'd go up and Toulouse had stayed in the championship, which hasn't happened. I think there'll be a 15 or a 14 team league next year if a club comes out and London go back up, or London go up and they remain with 15. But how you get into the Super League after 2026, I have no idea. And I think the IMG system and all the other systems, there's no point like trying to score yourself or because the goalposts change so often. So, the IMG point system, if they would have promoted London, then that's nothing to do with IMG, or is it to do with IMG? It's certainly not to do with league position last year because they finished 10th.
Yeah.
So it's interesting with regards to championship, but I'm quintessentially British, and promotion and relegation is quintessentially British.
Yeah.
The bottom team goes out, the top team goes up, or bottom three in the Premier League in football, and the top two plus one through playoffs. So I do believe there's got to be a carrot for championship clubs, and I hope there is, and that gives everybody a chance to, I believe, structure the business better. I think there's the Halifax, Salford, and Featherstone situation means that it's got to be structured better. There's lots of politics around the Featherstone stuff I won't go into, but it gives you a chance if you go into a club to get everything right, whether that's year 1, 2, 3, or you have a long-term plan of 4 or 5 years before you go up. It's something that I do believe we should have.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I suppose the caveat that, or the flip side of that, is the NRL model, isn't it, where you lock the door at 15 or 16 teams, and then all of those teams in the championship become a feeder team for that.
But we've done that though, Ron.
Yeah.
We've done that. We gave Catalan 3 years exemption from relegation when I played. So we have locked that off. We've had a franchise system, and still clubs went bust. So no matter which system you have, if the management of a club run it improper, it goes bust.
Yeah,
it goes into administration or winds up, and ultimately you've got to structure businesses better so they don't go bust. And I think that's the biggest learn for me last year was how not to run clubs and how as a coach you've got to fight for this and fight for the other, and we've got to make it so that businesses and rugby league models are strong. If you close off, then you may lose more than just Featherstone from the championship, because I do believe eventually people just stop going watching because there's no carrot at the end of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose it's that motivation, isn't it? The light at the end of the tunnel that you have a chance if you run your business right and you get the right investment and you structure your club right for multiple years. You have the chance of getting promoted, and I suppose that's what London are trying to do. They clearly got it wrong on field last year, and they're trying to obviously win the whole thing this year, prove that they can be full time in order to get that promotion. But if you take that away from the clubs, I do see what you're saying. Why do people come watch that?
Yeah, exactly that. I think London's an interesting one because they played in Super League 2 years ago, knowing full well they was going to be relegated at the end of the season, no matter where they finished.
Yeah.
And that, how can that be?
Yeah.
How come the bottom club not go down? And it could have been London. If I said this when London was in there, if they go on and win the comp, what happens?
Yeah.
You know, they go on and win the comp and they're getting relegated anyway, and they knew before a ball was kicked. Granted, they was never going to do that, but you know, in hindsight, what if that would have happened? It's just sad that them things are already happened. You know, the point system's already all locked in, so that the IMG point system meant that London was going to be relegated. And I don't see that on-field performance shouldn't be at the top of that list, given we're a sport that should have promotion and relegation, and the worst team goes down, the best team in the next league below comes up, and London would have had a chance.
Absolutely, and I think the flip of that as well is, like, obviously looking at 2024, Wakefield did win it, Wakefield did go up, but it was 65 minutes into that semi-final with York that Wakefield were losing, and it could have been a different narrative then. And then all of a sudden as well, London were one win at the end of the season away from not finishing bottom, and all of a sudden that changes the goalpost. So things really did fall into place that 24 season with the initial IMG, that the bottom team did go down and the top team did go up. What I'd like to ask you is, what you touched on there is, obviously you spoke about the run in the clubs, and having gone from being a player yourself within that, and obviously when you're a player, there's certain things you want and there's certain things that you take no notice of. I feel that myself. There's things that happen in the background that doesn't bother me, but if there's everything that I have at training is there for me, my kit's ready, and that's my daily routine. That's what I control. But when you've got to see both sides of that, what do you think the biggest things were as a coach that you think need to be, I suppose, managed from a backroom point of view?
In terms of running of the club as the head coach, well, ultimately the players the players I've always believed this, and I still believe it now. The players are the biggest commodity in our sport.
Yeah,
they're the biggest attraction in our sport. So one, you've got to look after the players. As a head coach, there's 30 grown babies, if you like, that keep your job, and or there's 30 blokes, and if you lose half a dozen of them, you cost you your job. So ultimately, players are the biggest asset to our sport, and we've got to look after players. Now, that means, one, paying them on time, two, making sure that they're physically ready. You've just said you go to a Super League club, you've got everything ready for you.
Yeah.
I think that should be done for Championship clubs in terms of, I don't mean all your kit laid out and stuff, because that's not what Championship's about. But ultimately, you get paid on time. You know, every month. Your scans are paid for, your medical's paid for, your supplements are paid for. You know, all of the stuff that goes around being the best version of a rugby player you can be should be at the forefront of business models, because without players, and what we've seen at Featherstone now is, without the players, the business can't run. You know, you've got a business at Featherstone which is not attracting as much money as it would have done if they had a rugby league team on the field.
Yeah.
So ultimately, with no players, no team, no business model, because you're not earning as much money as you would do with players. So, the first and foremost is look after players.
Yeah.
You know, and I believe that should be the case, whether you're the CEO of or the owner of the company, the rugby club, CEO of the rugby club, head coach of the rugby club, captain of the rugby club, whatever it may be. You've got to look after the people that earn you the most money.
Absolutely, and I think you're seeing nowadays that players themselves are valuing themselves more as an asset rather than just a mechanism for rugby. They're seeing themselves as an asset away from the game. And you're seeing, especially in the NRL, you're seeing these superstars, sort of like you're getting with football, where the player becomes the attraction more so than the club. Like, you see players like Reece Walsh, and they're attracting people to the game that have no idea about rugby, but they're just involved because of him, and all of a sudden they start watching because of that player. And we need more, I genuinely believe, we need more stars in the game. We need more people who are getting eyes on the game and actually growing it themselves and literally going, this is me, I'm so-and-so. And you know what, some people go, I don't like that. But those days are gone. Those days of the game are gone where you're robotic, and you need players who are a bit out there. And I think the game benefits from the crazy interviews and the characters of the sport.
And I agree with you. It's people like yourself, Ronan, that have taken this up, the podcasting and getting the game grown that way. And that comes across with what you do on every podcast that you do. Now, I'm a coach, and I played in a very different era to how it is now. Social media's taken over, phones have taken over. God help me if phones was around when I was playing. I can tell you now, I'd have been gone, absolutely gone and out of the game. But for me, again, people like yourself, the players, doing stuff like this, growing the game. There's no room for me as a coach to say you just need to concentrate on rugby league. That's not going to work anymore. And nor should it, really, because you and people like you are growing our game. So why would I just want you to solely concentrate on rugby league. If it starts affecting performance, then I've got a problem as a head coach. But if it doesn't, then grow the game.
Yeah.
And it's like TikTok and dances and, Christmas pyjamas with your missus and all that. The lads will all rib you and take the piss, but ultimately, it's still growing the game. The rugby players grow the game. Nobody else. The players, as I said in the last part, the players are the biggest asset and commodity of the game.
100%, and I'll never forget us on our way to Toulouse away. And I had obviously, I'm big on my filming and that, and you said you best play well, Ronan. And thank God we won that game because I would have been in the trouble if I didn't play well. Obviously, speaking about your time then as a player, you mentioned obviously it was a very different era, but probably arguably some of the best times for English Rugby League back then. Tell us a little bit about you coming through as a player and being from Hull.
Well, I wasn't good enough. I was told I wasn't good enough. So the biggest, I guess the biggest motivation I had was proving people wrong.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a great player until I was about 14, 15. And then I got half decent, signed with Hull FC. Could have gone to Hull KR or Halifax, who was in the Super League at the time. Chose to stay in Hull and signed for the club which was closest to becoming full-time in Super League. They were still in the Championship at the time. So I came through a system there where when they did get promoted into Super League, that there was towards the bottom end, as it was, the, sort of them yo-yo clubs, if you like, were up and then back down. But they managed to stay up, Hull, and then we flirted with relegation for the next few years, and I guess it's timing for me. Trying to get into a top 2 or top 3 or top 4 club as a 17-year-old as I was, I don't think I would have done.
Yeah.
But because the club was flirting with relegation, they gave myself and Richard Horn, the Doncaster coach now, an opportunity to become halfbacks at 17 and 18, and we stayed in there because we wasn't a very good team. So we stayed in there for years, and that was my biggest learning curve was playing.
Yeah.
And the ability to be able to make mistakes in the top level. It wasn't an enjoyable time when you're not winning games, obviously, but the lessons learned, I guess, forged my career.
100%. 100%. I think one of the biggest things you mentioned there was that motivation to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
I think that you need some sort of spark so often to get yourself going, because I always say having a big goal is important. Like, you want to be working towards something, but you need something to springboard you, and often that's that negative, angry energy, and that springboards you to getting started. And then when you get a bit of momentum, like you said, you're playing a lot as a young fella. Then you start obviously learning your craft, making mistakes, going again. But you need that springboard initially, and like for yourself, I was the same. It's people saying you can't do this, you can't play pro rugby. Like, no, what are you on about? No one from Ireland plays rugby league, and that was my springboard.
Yeah.
And you need something to sort of grit your teeth and get you going initially. And like, if anyone listening to this, any young fella listening to this is going, oh, someone's told me and it made you angry, that's not the reason to quit. That's the reason to bite down harder and go, you know what, now I'm going to prove them wrong, because you need that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, you can't hold on to that forever, and people make the mistake of holding on and being bitter forever. And when you're bitter forever, you become a bitter person, don't you? But that initial spark, that's not bad for anybody.
No, I don't disagree. And we're in an era now, I think, Ronan, where young players get it all given.
Yeah.
The expectance from young players coming through is that I am going to play first grade. Well, that was never the case when I was coming through. Yeah. It was, if you play first grade, you must be you must be good, and you've no God-given right to be doing anything.
Yeah,
you can work your balls off to get there, and if you get there, at least you know you've worked hard enough to get there. But I think we live in an era now where everything's now.
Yeah.
If you want food, you can go on your phone and get it delivered now. If you want a taxi, you can go on an Uber app and get it now. And everyone wants everything given now. And if you have to wait 30 minutes, or in our case as a rugby player, you have to wait 3 years for your debut, that don't work today in society, because everything's here and now. So the lesson is that what you just said, if you've got a goal and you work towards it, and you know that you're working towards it, you can't fail that, because you're giving everything if you don't get there.
100%.
So I just think for young players now, that there's an element of put your feet on the ground, work hard and get to where you want to get to. And if you work hard enough, if you're given it, there's no sense of satisfaction.
Yeah,
for me. You've got to work hard enough to get it.
For sure, and I think that's so important, that delayed gratification, isn't it? That ability to go, right, I'm not where I want to be now, but I'm going to work as hard as I can. And the thing that people need to realise is you can do all the work and still not make it.
True.
But at least you know you did the work.
Yeah.
And you didn't expect anything to be handed to you on a plate. And I agree with you in that sense, is that there's this sense of it should be just, I have a right to be here. Like, nobody has a right to be here. It can be taken away from you like that.
Any second.
At any second, it can be gone. And it's such an opportunity. And that's what I say to everyone every day. When I go into training, I go, I'm blessed to be here. This is a blessing. This is an opportunity. I'm back where I want to be. But that doesn't mean anything. Just being back there and in the mix doesn't mean anything to me. You know what I mean? No. You have to continue to work and to continue to graft again. Obviously, you came through as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
That's a pretty young age, regardless of the era, to be starting to play. And I feel like we're seeing less and less of that now. I feel like...
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I feel like when I was in academy, there was probably 2 or 3 lads who were debuting around, like I know Innes and Louis Senior were around that 17 mark one day, but I feel like we're seeing lads come onto the scene a little bit later. But what was that like for you as a complete teenager, stepping up and playing first team?
Yeah, not easy. Because ultimately you're not physically developed still. I think I was training full time for about 3 or 4 months when I got a debut at 18. I think I just turned 18.
Yeah.
And ironically, it was against a team who was top of the table, St Helens, 5 from 5 under Ellery Hanley, and went on to win the grand final. We got towelled up and came off the bench, I think, at 30 points to 6. And it finished 30 points to 6, so that's my saving grace. That there was no point.
That's a win then, isn't it?
But I remember the Vila Matauti, Ferretti Tuolangi, Chris Smith, who I ended up playing with at Hull FC. And when you hit them, there was like granite, and I just thought, quickly found that if I didn't get to some sort of level, then I wouldn't be lasting very long in first grade. So again, that made me want to work harder and become stronger and become, a better all-rounded rugby league player. So it certainly wasn't easy. We got beat 50 at home to London. I remember coming off, getting spat at and coins thrown at me, and the rest of the team, obviously. At Hull at the old Boulevard. So, it was character building. It was character building. And I guess if I was part of a team that was towards the top end of the league and better players came back from injury or better players came into the club, then I would never have played first grade for as many times as I did. So I'm blessed that I got an opportunity so early and that I stayed at the club for so long and ended up going on to win things.
Yeah, absolutely. And when at what stage do you feel like you became established and you started to feel like, you know what, this is my role, and I'm starting to own it a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's a player that came to the club who was the best player I played alongside, Jason Smith, and he came as an Australian international state of origin player, and I spent a full pre-season training 2 meters behind him and listening to him, and when he left the club and I became, I guess not more regular, I was still regular when he was at the club, but I became the regular player on the left edge. And I think I was probably 22, maybe 23 when I thought I actually do belong. And then a couple of years after we go on and win a Challenge Cup and being an integral part or being part of a team and finding yourself or you feel, I guess I felt invincible at that time. I felt bulletproof. The game became really simple and easy. It's not, obviously, but it slowed down for me and everything became really, really easy to picture. But I guess that was the hours and hours and months and years previous to that I was doing the apprenticeship under him and at the club under some quality coaches who challenged me. So I guess it was probably a season or two before the Challenge Cup final, which we won in 2005. So maybe 2003 onwards, I felt I'm established here. 22, maybe 23.
100%. Talk about that Challenge Cup final win.
Yeah. Well, the run wasn't easy. It was a run of 5 games against all Super League opposition. We went to Wakefield, which is never easy.
Yeah.
And certainly wasn't back then. They had some wonderful players. The coach of London now, Jason Demetriou, was the skipper there. The coach at York, Mark Applegarth, played. So we went there and got a result. We played Bradford at home. Bradford were the team back then. I think, the Van der Kolov, Vicona, Robbie Paul, Field and for Ghana. They was a phenomenal team. We beat them by 2, I think. And then we played Lee at home. Lee were the newly promoted team from the Championship, so that was probably our easiest game of the run, the quarter-final. Semi-final against St Helens, the all-conquering team of the following season who only lost 4 games. They were heavy favourites, and then we played Leeds in the final. So it wasn't an easy run, but I guess nothing in life comes easy, does it? So we did it a tough way, and we ended up getting a result in... The only regret I have with that run is it wasn't at Wembley. It was at Cardiff, because Wembley had 2 years been redeveloped. So all of them iconic games I used to watch as a kid, the Challenge Cup finals, the great Wigan team of the 90s, and I ended up playing in Cardiff. So never got to climb the iconic stairs. Yeah.
A bit disappointed. Listen, we're not going to be rushing to Cardiff anytime soon. Now. We don't bring the cup back there.
No.
But they're special memories, aren't they? And that's what you dream of as a player, like winning some silverware. And it's nearly better, isn't it, that you went on to beat all those teams on the run? Yeah. Because it makes you feel like it wasn't an easy run in. No, you had to beat the best to be the best.
Yeah, it was a cup of achievement, wasn't it? You achieved something every single game. Again, we didn't play lower league opposition. We didn't play any amateur teams. So yeah, it was a tough run, but a good run. And that was the start of the whole team developing into from contenders to winners. Yeah. That we belonged in them big games. We went on to make a grand final the following year. So yeah, we felt a sense as a group that we belong with that cup win. I played in a couple of semi-finals and lost at Huddersfield, particularly one at Huddersfield to Leeds when I was a young kid at 18. So it took a long time to get there, and was a great cup run built on. And a great team built on camaraderie and fun and having a laugh and having a beer together and then going out and doing the business. The team was a wonderful team, that is for sure.
And how much does that mean, having that one belief and 2, that camaraderie? Because you see teams that are absolutely stacked, and they definitely have the belief because they're looking around and there's superstars everywhere, but they might not be that together off the field. And then you see teams that are just absolutely like that off the field, and they may not be the best, but they always seem to turn up for each other. So how much is having that undoubted belief paired with the camaraderie and the fact that you get together away, have a drink and that, how much does that matter in terms of going that distance and doing those extra bits?
I think that's where the game's changed so much now. It's become ultra professional, where if you're seen to be doing anything wrong, and whereas back then, I think when I speak to John Wilkin or when I speak to anybody that played for Saints back then in that era, they was just like us. They enjoyed socialising as much as playing rugby league. Probably more so. We enjoyed socialising more than playing rugby league. But it certainly helps when you're on the field and you know that you can look to your left and right. And you was out with them the night before or the week before, and they've got your back, you've got their back. So there was a big off-field culture back then, I think, where I remember when I first got into the team at Hull FC, we used to meet every Tuesday night, and if you wasn't there, you got fucking hammered.
Yeah.
For not being there.
Yeah.
So if you miss out on a team night out, you're getting hammered. So the very few people, if any, missed a team night out. Every Tuesday, we went out almost every week on a Tuesday night to a local nightclub in Hull. So yeah, there was great times. You can't do that now, I don't think. I just think the game's gone beyond all of that now. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know. But so certainly the best teams that I played in had that camaraderie off the field and spent lots of time together off the field. And when I speak, as I said, to people at St Helens at that time who were brilliant, and Bradford, they probably had the same.
Absolutely, and you need that, don't you? And you're not wrong. The game has changed a lot, and I think the younger generation as well. They're the first to say they're not going to be coming. And I'm not old, don't get me wrong. I'm probably still the younger end of a team. But I'm like, Jesus, when I was coming through, like you said, you wouldn't dare say you're not going to team do. If the older boys, when I was coming through Huddersfield, if the first team said, this is Christmas do, or this, you wouldn't dare say no.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And that was only, 8 years ago when I was coming through the academy at Huddersfield. And if I was up training and I was invited to something, whether it be a Nando's or whether it be a drink at Huddersfield, I was there. I wouldn't dare. Even if I had no money, I'd be finding me money to go to Nando's with the first team, because that was, I wouldn't dare say no, but it's changed a lot now, hasn't it?
Yeah. I think again, it's the here and now, and it's the mobile phones, and everything's easily accessible. You don't need to go anywhere to do anything, do you? So yeah, I don't know. I've not been part of a coaching staff, I guess, for long enough, where things like that are arranged and I haven't gone. I think everybody does go. But they're not every week like there was when I played, or every couple of days.
Twice a week.
Yeah, possibly. But but I don't think it's a bad thing either.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's too easily you can get yourself into trouble too easily, and we see that with mobile phones and videos. If you look at some of the stuff that I think there's one on the Wigan Mad Monday where somebody swings off a lampshade and falls in the bar. I dare to think. I dread to think if there was a mobile phone or a video camera around when we was playing, then there'd be far more videos. A couple of players chucked through patio windows on Lanzarote trips and stuff like that. Where somebody's fallen out. There's always a fallout between teammates, and somebody gets a good harding. There's been lots of them. Players turned up the next morning with caps down, and so you can't see the black eyes and stuff. So, I don't know that. I enjoy the game today as I enjoyed it back then, and I'm certainly I don't have no desire to go back and play. I think some people struggle with retirement and all that. From the day I retired, I'm quite pleased with that. I'm happy. I don't want to pull on another pair of boots, and I don't want to go back to do what I did. I enjoyed my time, and now it's somebody else's.
100%. Speaking on then, as you moved on, you moved across. What would you call it? Across the bridge.
Yeah, across the river.
Across the river. Yeah. That wasn't a big. It happens more now. It didn't. It didn't happen so much then, did it?
Well, it did. It wasn't as high profile because I did it mid-season. I did it not mid-contract because I didn't sign the contract. That's how I ended up leaving. But I left a month before my 10-year anniversary at the club, which tells a story in itself. That's the part of the reason I left. It didn't have to be OKR. I think people underestimate the fact that I'm a stubborn bastard and I would have gone anywhere because the club weren't willing and forthcoming. I don't like bullies and I don't like people belittling people, and I certainly try and stand up for them people. I think you know that as a player now, that if there's a playing group now that I'm part of that needs standing up for, then I'll stand up for them.
100%.
And that's just the way I've always been. So it didn't have to be okay. It could have been any other club that came in and said, we will take you. I would have gone to any other club. I just wouldn't have stayed at Hull FC without them speaking to me, and they didn't. So it wasn't an easy time, more so for my family. It wasn't an easy time for them. I knew what I was getting myself in for, and they did, but I don't think they expected as much of a backlash as that did happen. It wasn't an easy time, but it was still, I was playing rugby league. I was still employed by another rugby league club in the city, and I enjoyed my time there too.
Absolutely, and obviously you managed to tell the story, and the book's name was Judas. Was that a bit of a self-proclaimed, or were people giving that name?
That name was given, and then it's funny because the book was always going to be called that. I don't think there was any other name for it. And then it's funny because we did a cover, and Adrian Durham, who co-wrote it with me, writer, who's a brilliant writer, by the way. The book is made by him. It's my story, but it's the way it's put together is outstanding. And we had a front cover and it just said Judas on it. And then he added a question mark on the end. And as daft as that sounds, it was really powerful. When he said it to me and why he'd done it, it was really powerful. It was the title of the book with the question mark at the end is asking the reader to decide whether I was a Judas or not.
Yeah.
So it was a very clever question mark at the end of it, because it asked the reader a question before he or she even opens the book. And what it did do for me was it allowed people of the people in Hull who were very, very knowledgeable people, and the people from Hull, if you tell them something, then you've got to tell, if you, I say this analogy quite a lot, if you owe them £5, you can't give them £4.50.
Yeah.
You owe me a fiver. It's as simple as that. And what they then decided from reading the book was it his fault or was it the club's fault? Is it half a dozen of one, 6 of the other? And would they have done the same thing given their line of work? So if they're a furniture maker and another furniture maker comes along and that company's not treating you right, would they leave? So I think it put over to the reader that I'm from Hull, you're from Hull, the majority of people that bought the book are from Hull, and it asked them the question of would you have done the same thing? And I think a lot of people would have done the same thing in Hull, because that's the type of people that they are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the biggest thing on all of that is that until you know the perspective, you don't really know what's going on, do you?
Well, it's funny because I have a motto in life now where I don't judge anybody. So there's no judgment from me with anybody because you don't know what shoes they're walking in and you haven't walked in them. So you don't know what happened the night before. You don't know what's happened in their life personally. You don't know if the nan's passed away or the granddad's passed away or they've lost the mum or the dad or whatever it may be. You don't know if they're having issues with alcohol. You don't know if they're having issues in their personal life with relationships. So I tend not to judge anyone. Whenever anybody asks, I feel like I'm a type of person, particularly a coach, and you've been coached by me, that I would hate that one of the players couldn't approach me and ask me something.
Yeah.
If they're having an issue and they can't come to me and confide in me. Because if they feel they can't do that, then that means I've judged them before they can come to me.
Yeah.
So I'm a really big believer in judge nobody, and until you know what's going on, just lend an ear, be there for them. Whether that's a rugby player and a coach relationship and player relationship, or whether that's a father-son, father-daughter relationship, whatever it may be, don't judge.
100%, and you like you said, you don't know what shoes people are walking in. You never do know. And the scary thing about rugby league is when you get on that field and you're playing for 80 minutes, nobody knows what your weeks look like, and nobody knows what's going on in the background, and none of that is. No one's aware of that, and that's not even to have like a sob story or have the violin out. But people don't know that. People don't know that. Like when you're running onto that pitch, they don't know what's been going on with your family, or people have been saying stuff to the people who you love and care about that whole week, and then you have to run on and play for care and all that's been happening. Nobody is aware of that, are they? And it is just that. Never judge someone by the cover, and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
And ultimately, we're the Be Kind movement we had. Remember the Be Kind when Caroline Flack sadly took her own life, and then it became Be Kind. Well, why not be kind before?
Yeah,
just be kinder. Don't have a go. And this is what the social media thing's a big one, isn't it? Where people can readily have a shot at people on social media with a fake profile.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if someone takes their own life because they're being bullied or whatever it may be, then it's be kind afterwards. And I don't agree. That's what I don't agree with. I don't agree with any judgment before. And if we can help each other, help.
100%. Speaking on, obviously, you spoke about your coaching philosophy there, and about obviously I've had you as a coach, mate, and I give everyone raps. The way you break down the game, it's insane, and I absolutely love it. But who do you feel was the best coach for you and got the most out of you as a player?
I only had him for 6 months. Peter Sharp at Hull FC. So John Keir got relieved of his duties 7 games in. I think we'd lost 7 from 7 in 2006. And then Peter Sharp came in, and he challenged me mentally. And I think that's the big one for me, is physically challenging someone and standing up to them physically. That's easy. And we're all in a very masculine game, a very confrontational game, and we all confront each other anyway. But what he did is he challenged me and the team mentally, to be better mentally, to be stronger mentally, whether that was day to day or whether that was just on the field and playing. And he got the best out of me in terms of football. I think I played my best rugby league under him. John Keir was the other one who challenged us. John's motivation was outstanding. He had a couple of good assistants in Richard Agar and Andy Lass technically. So that worked really well as a staff. And John was great for me too. I think the biggest thing I've learned, Ronan, with every coach I've had is, even if I didn't agree with some of the philosophies of the coaches that I've had, I've always been able to take something from them. There's a part of everybody that's positive that you can use. So you always take something positive from everybody. And I think that's made me the way I am today. Not just my upbringing as well from my parents, but then obviously I've taken bits from everybody. So I every day is a school day for me. I don't think there's a rugby league player that's complete in the world. So everybody's still learning and everybody's still trying to get better. Even if you name the best player in the world, the Reece Walshes, Nathan Clearys, or in ours, your George Williams, Mark Sneed, whoever it may be, Jake Connor last year as Man of Steel, I think he's still learning. Yeah. He can still become a better rugby league player. And so can everybody else.
100%. And obviously you speak on those big names and the superstars of the game.
Yeah.
Do you think the gap's as big as people think between the NRL and the Super League?
Well, they keep taking out players. So
Yeah.
it can't be, can it?
Well, that's why I ask. And what I say is, if it's not that big, what do we do as a game here to change the perspective on it? Because at the minute, like regardless of whether the gap is bigger, and you see with the World Club Challenge, the last 2 World Club Challenge, Wigan and Kerr have won them. Now, whether that's been because it's over here, you can't make it, or all the Aussies.
We won the one before that, over there. St Helens beat Penrith by a point in Golden Point.
Yeah, exactly.
So we won over there.
Exactly, but until the narrative shifts that the NRL is the bigger game, and I would say personally, it's a bigger game because it's marketed better, and the way that they show it and package the product is better. But how do we bridge the gap?
Well, I think we're at a crossroads here, Ronan, where if the NRL is going to invest in British Rugby League and European Rugby League, which it sounds like they want to, we're at a crossroads where we either accept that and accept help, or we don't. And I'm a big believer that if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got.
100%.
So if we carry on down the same road we're going, we're never going to improve. I don't think the salary cap or players' wage. I have a nephew in the game who signed a professional contract with Hull KR for the same money I signed to Hull FC 25 years before. So our pay's not gone up in terms, and that
it's crazy. It's crazy.
So if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got. So we either accept help from the NRL and investment if they want control, and they market over here, whatever it may be. We're at crossroads of whether we do it or not. I tend to think that we should. I tend to think we should accept that. If you've just said what you've just said is factually true, isn't it? The game's bigger over there. It's marketed better. The packaged all better. So if they're willing to do that over here, why don't we accept it?
100%. And I think that's the biggest thing. Eyes on the game. Eyes on the game, and the way the package is. The product is packaged.
And what we will say, though, now is that there's more eyes on the game now than there ever has been. The crowds have been great to start this year. The viewing figures on the broadcasting channel Sky have been brilliant, as well as all the other radio outlets that the listeners would have been great at. So what we will say as a game is we are doing okay. Are we? That's that's the crossroads right now. But I also agree with it's got to be right for the game over here. We're sceptical of it because we don't want to become a feeder competition to the NRL.
Yeah,
they're giving guarantee. The talks around the table, I guess, would be fascinating. And what we do in a few months, I think they've put a 3-month ceiling on it, and they want an answer in the next 3 months. Well, it's going to be a fascinating 3 months.
I think it's super interesting. I think the thing that I suppose interests me the most is that with the game growing over here, how far can potential Australian investment take it? Because the one thing that I think puts a ceiling on the game over here is the fact that there's individuals who have their thoughts and they have their 2 cents in the game, and as long as those individual owners and individual clubs are thinking inwards on their numbers, and they don't have a neutral person overseeing it all saying, no, this is the best thing. The thing that summed up for me was the Toronto situation, For me, like obviously the remaining 11 Super League teams got the option to vote whether Toronto Wolfpack stayed in the Super League that year in COVID, and they voted them out. And as a Super League and as a team, say your Cass or your Wigan or your Huddersfield Giants or whoever it may be, an expensive trip to Toronto when you want some of their players, or a trip down to the capital, what are you going to pick as a club owner? But that's individually selfish, isn't it?
But that's what our game is and has been, isn't it? It's always been about self-preservation. I think I found the Peter V'landys interview with Brian Carney in Las Vegas last week fascinating in terms of there's a bloke there that's interested in the good of the game, or it sounds like he is, in terms of the way they've brought the NRL to where it is today, $1 billion and the biggest company in Australia. If we don't make decisions for the good of the game and we do it selfishly for ourselves and our own clubs and whichever club you are part of, then that for me is just too selfish. And we've got to, the game is far more important than any one component team in the game. And I don't think there's enough of what's good for the game rather than what's good for clubs that are part of the game. The game's bigger than everybody.
100%. And what Vlandy's done, initially people were like, nah, he's speeding it up, the ruck's too quick, and then now people are loving it. They're loving the product. It's growing faster than ever in Australia. And I think the biggest indicator of whether this works or not, whether the NRL take over or not, is going to be the Ashes series, I think. I think whether they bridge the gap between the best 17 or best 13 Australian players and the best 13 English players. I think that has to be one of the main indicators, because if the game gets better over here and the Super League gets better over here and there's more quality players over here, that gap gets smaller.
Well, the Ashes was a wake-up call, wasn't it? It was a kick up the arse for the game. We lost it 3-0. Just not good enough. Not far away, but not good enough. And we've been that way for quite some time, haven't we? I think there was an ankle tap away on Callum Watkins. A finger away with Ryan Hall, which probably was a try. We've not been far away of winning something, a World Cup for argument's sake, as England. But we probably feel further away after the Ashes series. So it was a kick up the arse for the game, and again, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So what do we do? That's the crossroads we're at as a game now.
100%. Speaking of the international game, you got what, 3 caps?
I don't know.
I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna take a guess off my reason. What was it like playing for England?
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, I was part of an England team that toured the South Sea Islands, and every single member of the team went on to play more than 50 games in Super League. The late Rob Burrow was in there, Danny Maguire, Jamie Jones Buchanan, Gareth Ellis, Danny Ward. Yeah, it was Sean O'Loughlin. It was a brilliant team.
Stacked.
A brilliant team, yeah. We went over to play in Tonga and Fiji. Played in the series over here against Tonga and Samoa. So yeah, it was, there's nothing bigger in the sport for me, and I'm a massive advocate of international football, and I'm part of the Irish setup now with obviously yourself and Jed, and I'm a big advocate that the pinnacle for our sport is internationally. When you stand and sing your national anthem, it was a proud moment for me. Still got a few shirts, I think, in storage. I've just moved from Hull and it's in store. There's some shirts I've got in storage. With all due respect, they're my memories, so I don't need the shirts, and don't need anybody or any. I don't need medals. I don't need shirts. I don't have much left. Playing for your country is the pinnacle, and everything. I remember it like it was yesterday.
There's nothing better, and I'll die on the hill. There is nothing better. The international games are interesting. This year's going to be interesting with the international game with the World Cup. Before we go on to that, obviously, the Zach Lomax story unfolds this week, and he says that he wants to move across to rugby union, whether that be truth or not truth, due to the fact that the rugby union game for Zach Lomax offers a bigger international opportunity. What do you think we need to do to obviously get Rugby League, or will Rugby League ever even get there on an international scale?
Well, whatever we can do, we should do to get it on that scale, to get it to the Twickenham sellouts that the Rugby Union have. We need to do anything and everything, because believe it's the pinnacle of the sport. So whatever we can do, we should do. We should try and do to grow our international game. Again, it's that selfish nature of clubs, isn't it? That we can't have England as a mid-season international because the Super League overtakes it, and clubs don't want to release players and stuff like that. So, I've always have been and always will be a big advocate for the international game. And Zach Lomax is a bullshitter, by the way, going over to Rugby Union. There's no way on the planet he envisaged that he was going to be playing Rugby Union in the World Cup because of an international stage. Because he just tried to sign for Melbourne the week before, and he's gone from 2 clubs to what was the R360, which never got up and running. And, I think I saw James Graham say roughly the same thing as I'm saying. He's called bullshit on it too.
Yeah, what he said was basically like, imagine being one of the actual players who've been playing for the Wallabies for years, and all these people come in and say they'd love to play and it's their dream, and they just know that they're talking rubbish in a way, don't they?
Yeah, and I believe James is right about that too with regards to that Lomax. If he's not going to play in the NRL for 2 years, he wants to play football, doesn't he? Rugby, he wants to play for somewhere, and whether that's the crosscode and Rugby Union, which is the path he has chosen. But the week before that, he was trying to get to Melbourne Storm, wasn't he? If Parramatta come to an agreement with Melbourne, then he probably goes to Melbourne for the rest of this year and next. Before where he goes after that, who knows?
God knows. I think obviously coming up to the World Cup, I think it's been pretty quiet, all things considered. The fact that it's a World Cup year, the conversations around it, and the thing that frustrates me most, obviously, I'm very biased towards Ireland and the international game within Ireland. That's something that I'm very passionate about, and obviously with you being involved with Ireland as well now, it's pretty special. But a 10-team World Cup, you can hardly call it a World Cup, can you? With 10 teams in it, it's more like a England, France, and the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, I don't like it. I must admit, I think that a World Cup should be a World Cup. I can understand it from a business point of view in terms of I'm never one to that judgment word again. So I don't. Excuse me. I don't particularly know the ins and outs of why, but I imagine it's financial. That if you sit here and ask me why is it a 10-team World Cup, because it makes more money.
Yeah.
So that's why it'll be. But I certainly believe that players of Ireland, Scotland, wherever it may be, should have the opportunity to represent the country against the best players in the world too. I watched the Jamaica try at Hull against the Kiwis, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that one try was everything to them Jamaican players. That was playing for the heritage of Jamaica. So that image is enough for me to say that everybody should go.
100%, and I think you might have actually been commentating the game when Ireland played. Did you comment to Ireland, New Zealand?
New Zealand
at Headingley. That was my World Cup debut, and we went 2-0 up, slotted a penalty from 45 out, and that was ecstasy. There was 13,000. It felt like the whole stadium was for Ireland.
I think there was an intercept, wasn't there? It was the intercept at the end of the game. Was it one of the senior players that scored an intercept? And again, it was everything to you Irish players. Didn't you get shortened up by Jared Rea-Hargreaves that game? Was it you?
It wasn't me. Dan Norman. Poor fella got on his World Cup debut.
I think Jed tells a funny story about that, doesn't he? Because he's fuming at Jared Rea-Hargreaves and he has a go in the tunnel and he says, thankfully somebody held Jared back from him. So he didn't get filled in.
He would have been belted off as well. Come on then. And the next thing, if you put it on him, mate, that would have been dramas. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? And that's the sport. And the sport that we have is so special.
I did the Lebanon game too. I commentated on the Lebanon game. I thought that was a fabulous game of rugby league. I know Lebanon ended up getting a result against you boys at Lee, wasn't it?
At Lee
Sports Village. Yeah, so I did that game too. But I think the NRL player was playing for Lebanon, wasn't he? Was it Mitchell Moses? Mitchell Moses was man of the match and killed it. Yeah, but to see them nations, and Michael Checker was the coach, wasn't he? He's now at the Roosters. He's been over to rugby league, so the World Cup brings an array of everybody, doesn't it? Diverse and all inclusive. Yeah,
100%. Geez, that Lebanon game cuts us deep because Ulster and Lebanon both lost their license, but because Lebanon made the quarters, they auto qualified for this one, and then we didn't. But the thing about Lebanon, that game, I'll never forget it. Because we were doing a preview on Lebanon, and our assistant coach at the time, Joe, says, Jacob Kiraz, mate, he's not a fucking fullback. Mate, listen, he's not an NRL fullback.
He scored a wonderful try, didn't he?
And Michael Checker special, mate, came up the inside, went untouched. And I'm like, fucking not, mate, he's not an NRL fullback. Mate, at this level, he can definitely play. And him and Mitch Moses put the clinic on. Kiraz was untouchable. I think his career nearly kicked on from that.
He did, yeah.
Off the back of that World Cup, Jacob Kiraz obviously become an exceptional winger in the NRL.
Yeah, he did.
But he's not a fucking fullback. I don't understand that. Mate, I was like that.
He's a rugby player,
though, mate. Fuck, he can't play. And with Michael Checker coaching, putting on these set little rugby union plays, mate.
We got you up the middle, didn't it?
Straight up the guts, mate.
Yeah, both halfbacks and fullback.
Yeah, it was like
it's a fabulous set play.
Beautiful set play. Kiraz under the sticks and I was saying, not a fullback, fucking hell, that was all time. But mate, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And I think there's so much more to look ahead of for the sport and for the season, isn't there?
Absolutely. Listen, it's the greatest game in the world, and nobody will convince me any different. I love the game. I'm fortunate to still be involved in it. I love watching the game. I don't know. I watch every game I can. Every single game I can. I've watched all the NRL games. Watched all the Super League games. I get to go to games for free. I get to watch it. The athletes are fantastic. The clubs are doing great. So, long may it continue. I couldn't be more thankful that I've been a part of the game and still am a part of the game.
Paul Cooke, that was a serious message. Thank you, my man. Appreciate you coming on.
Man. Thanks, man.
Legend, mate. Legend.